Though it may seem that life is long and slow and that we have an endless amount of time, life is in fact quite short and fleeting. And so we may ask ourselves, do we really want to waste our days in life unhappy? Have you spent much of your life up until this point unhappy? Luckily, we have many great minds that came before us who can help guide us in creating happiness within our lives. One such individual is Arthur Schopenhauer, a German philosopher who lived in the 18th and 19th century. Known throughout his life as an overwhelmingly pessimistic individual, the world became witness to a different Arthur after his death. A manuscript that would later be called The Art of Being Happy was found after his passing and is a complete juxtaposition to his previous work. Within these pages, Arthur goes into much detail, covering his so-called 50 rules to living a happy life. And in this video, we will be exploring 2 of these timeless rules. It's been a long day of classes and Ben is glad to be going home. It's not that he hates college, in fact, he's really enjoying it, but there's nothing like going home after a day full of classes. It's instant relief. As he makes his way out of class, one of his good friends named Vinny runs up to him and they start chatting. Vinny is a good guy, comes from a good family, and they're both juniors. They've been friends throughout college and hope to stay in touch after they both graduate. Vinny asks Ben what he's doing later and if he wants to come by for a little get-together. Ben says he doesn't have much going on and agrees to stop by. They both end up walking in the same direction towards the parking lot since both live off campus these days. As they're walking, they come up on Vinny's car first. They shake hands and Vinny reminds Ben to stop by later on. At the same time, Ben is somewhat admiring Vinny's car. It's a brand new BMW. He's seen it a few times and is still very impressed by it. Extremely clean, no scratches, it has leather interior and those fancy heated seats. Oh, and best of all, it has that new car smell. And he knows for a fact that Vinny's parents bought it for him because he's a full-time student, unlike Ben, who has to work a part-time job to pay for bills and rent. Lucky man. As he makes his way further down the parking lot, he starts to see his car. And though he loves his car since he's had it since high school, it's not nearly as cool as Vinny's. It's an old beat-up Corolla. The rims aren't very clean, and the paint has been chipping away at certain spots. He gets in it, and rather than having that amazing new car smell, it smells like a mixture between old gym clothes and fast food. He gives a little sigh and cranks her up. She sputters a bit, but she's running. On the way home, he gets a call from one of his roommates who was asking if Ben needed anything from the store since he's going to be taking a trip there. Ben told him he had everything he needed. He finally pulls up to the driveway and makes his way into the house. You see, Ben lives with 3 roommates. They all share the rent and utilities in something that many people would classify as a typical college house. You walk in and the first thing you see are beer cans. Beer cans on the kitchen counter, beer cans on the stove, and several more beer cans on the living room table. The house is old and filthy. It's in need of a deep cleaning, or better yet, a full renovation. There are stains on the walls, stains on the carpet, and almost everything in the house has a creak to it. Ben hates it, but he's a poor college kid, and this is all that he can afford. He says hi to 2 of his roommates, asks what they've been up to today, and goes to his room. He's a bit tired and wants to lay down on his bed and relax for a while. As he steps into his room, he hears that familiar creak. It's always at that one specific spot on the floor. He tosses his bag aside and drops onto his bed, pulls out his phone and starts scrolling through social media. He looks through his Instagram and starts seeing a bunch of posts from these so-called influencers. They're all young and good looking, guys and girls his age who are apparently making more money than he could ever dream of. They have photos with sports cars, nice houses, beautiful girls, and many of them seem to be traveling to incredibly exotic places. Beaches in faraway lands, mountains with fresh snow, and bustling cities with large crowds. Ben looks up and remembers he's still here, in a dirty old college house, struggling to make rent. He knows that staying on social media too much is bad for him, but he can't help it. It makes him feel like a loser with a boring car, a boring house, and living a boring life. After some time, he gets a text from Vinny telling him to come over. He takes a second to gather himself, changes into a nicer shirt, and heads out of his room. His roommates seem to have either left or are in their rooms, so he opens the front door and steps outside. He jumps into his car as she once again sputters for a second, and then he's back out onto the road. As he drives towards Vinny's, he can start to see the difference between the part of town that he lives on and the quote-unquote nice part of town. The nice part is where the university is, and it's where Vinny's apartment is. In fact, Vinny lives right across from the school football stadium. It's the perfect spot for game day. He finally gets to Vinny's apartment and pulls up to the gate. It requires a code, so he enters it, and the gate begins to open. Whenever there's a gate, you know it's a nice place, Ben thinks to himself. Vinny shares an apartment with his older brother. Their parents own a fairly big company, and so they bought Vinny and his brother an upscale apartment to live in while in college. Ben has been there a few times, and he's still amazed by how nice of a place it is. He gets out of his car, almost feeling like it doesn't belong among all these other expensive cars, and starts walking towards Vinny's apartment. He walks up the stairs, down the hallway, and finally gets to his door. He gives it a knock, and a moment later, Vinny opens it with a big smile and welcomes Ben in. Automatically, Ben notices the granite countertops, the nice tiles in the kitchen, the dark hardwood floor, and tons of cool decorations and furniture throughout the house. It's a big place. They hug and exchange a few words. Vinny then introduces Ben to some of the other people he invited, and Ben puts on a smile. Fast forward a few hours, it was a fun night, but Ben has to head home. He's got work in the morning. He says goodbye to everyone, thanks Vinny for the invite, tells him he'll see him in class, and heads out the door. And as he's walking down the hallway, he can't help but feel sad. His life is nothing like Vinny's. It's nothing like the influencers he sees on social media. He hates his life. It makes him depressed. And as he gets into his car and starts to head home, that feeling of sadness only continues to grow stronger. Arthur Schopenhauer lived in a world before the internet and before social media. It was a simpler time. Life was much simpler. But he nonetheless understood this incredibly important notion, which is to avoid comparing our lives to the lives of others. Life is not fair. I'm sure we've all heard that before, but many of us seem to forget it. Some people are always going to be more well off, better looking, have more money, and live more exciting lives. We're not all born with the same opportunities. It's an unfortunate reality, but it's one that we need to accept. But it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, because we can always improve our lives, and that is where the true satisfaction of life is. To see that we are improving. So taking time to get away from social media and the constant barrage of pop culture is only going to help your mental health and your overall happiness in life. And rather than comparing ourselves to others, we should focus on comparing our current self with our past self. Maria is having a busy morning. She just dropped off her son at school, and now she's rushing to make it to work on time. It's a typical morning for her, but today she woke up a little late, which means she woke up her son a little late, made her coffee a little late, and of course, left the house a little late. And now as she's weaving in and out of traffic like a wannabe race car driver, clearly driving over the speed limit, it was at that exact moment that she heard that dreaded siren and saw those dreaded blue lights. She was being pulled over. Already stressed and anxious about getting to work on time, this only added to her overall stress. She of course obliged and pulled over. The police officer walked up to her car and asked her if she knew how fast she was going. She confessed that she wasn't sure and told the officer it was because she was rushing to get to work, which at this point seemed like a lost cause. But by a stroke of luck, the officer let her off with a warning and let her go. And as the officer walked back to his car, she breathed a very big sigh of relief. But then she remembered she was still going to be late. Maria started up her car and began making her way down the road again. This time she was picturing what she would have to tell her boss, still ultimately stressed and lost in thought. She finally pulled into her work's parking lot, turned her car off, grabbed her things, and began to rush toward the entrance. As she walked in, she checked her watch and it read 8:14 a.m., almost 15 minutes late. She went directly to her boss, apologized, and explained the situation. Her boss was a little annoyed, but thanked Maria for telling her what happened. And with that out of the way, Maria got to work. As the day progressed, she stayed fairly busy, doing this thing and that thing. And during her downtime, she kept thinking and stressing about other things that she needed to get done after work. She'll need to pick up her son, get groceries, drive home, cook dinner, but what will she cook for dinner? They just had pasta last night, so maybe some grilled chicken, or how about some fish? It's been a while since they ate any seafood, and she's been reading a lot about how healthy seafood can be, so maybe they do that tonight. She'll have to make sure that her mind constantly running from one thing to the next. And then 5 o'clock rolled around and it was closing time. Maria packed up her things, said bye to her boss and coworkers, and headed for her car. Again, she was in a bit of a rush. She had to pick up her son, of course. As she drove down the road, she was a little more cautious now, but still kept up a decent pace. During those few moments of alone time, Maria kept wondering why she was always so stressed. She knew that running around all the time wasn't helping, but she's a single mother trying her best to provide a good life for her young son. What other option does she have? The rest of the afternoon continued as usual. She picked up her son from his after-school program, they went and grabbed groceries, and eventually drove home. All the while, Maria was trying to be happy and positive around her son, asking him how school went, what he learned, and how his day was. But deep down, she was feeling much different. As she started making dinner with her son in the other room watching his favorite cartoon, Maria couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed. She started thinking about the myriad of things that needed to get done tomorrow, the bills that needed to get paid, and wondering how nice it will be when she finally gets a better paying job. You see, even though her current job is steady, it doesn't pay enough. Not enough for her and her son to live comfortably. Not enough for her to take him on trips and buy him the toys and gadgets that he wants. She wants to give her son the best life, but she doesn't know how to get there. Snap out of it. You need to cook dinner, Maria says to herself. And with that, she got down to work, cooked dinner, and had a nice meal with her boy. The evening rolled on, and it was time for her son to go to bed. So she tucked him in, gave him a kiss, turned on his nightlight, and walked out to the living room. She fell on the couch and let out a deep sigh. She was tired physically and mentally. Then she picked up the TV remote and decided to watch her favorite show before heading off to bed herself. A little moment of peace in an otherwise stressful world. There's a reason why movies and shows are such an integral part of humanity. It's because they make us feel emotions that we may not otherwise feel in our daily lives. Getting lost in an adventurous movie about a treasure hunter who travels the world in search of lost artifacts, or losing ourselves in a romantic show about two young and beautiful people whose worlds collide, helps us forget our struggles and makes us feel alive, if only for a moment. But Arthur Schopenhauer understood something very important, something that he very likely learned from the ancient teachings of Buddhism, which is that the only time that exists is the now. Stressing about our past is a waste of time, it no longer exists. Focusing constantly on our future and how much better it will be than what we have right now only creates anxiety in the now. We all have stresses and challenges in life, some more than others. Though by taking time to focus on the present moment, we can begin to see the beauty in our lives. We can begin to feel alive. We can see the beauty of even the smallest moments that we are generally too lost in thought to appreciate. And all of that constant thinking and that continuous barrage of thoughts only helps to build anxiety and stress. Now, Schopenhauer would tell us that, of course, we must think about the future to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, otherwise we have no direction. But not to do so constantly to the point where we're always anxious. We must take time to stop and smell the roses, if you will. To learn to see the beauty that is right in front of us. Get out of your mind and get into the present. Otherwise, you may look back many years from now and wonder where it all went.